Get that disgusting thing away from decent passengers. Veronica Pierce's voice cuts through the cabin of SkyWing Airlines. Flight 892, like a blade dipped in venom. Her perfectly manicured hand, nails painted executive red, hovers over the portable oxygen concentrator, keeping 32-year-old Naomi Carter alive. Naomi's thin frame seems to vanish into seat 12C. Her faded Goodwill cardigan hangs loose on shoulders that carry chronic illness and grinding poverty. Clear plastic tubes snake from her nostrils to the quietly humming machine at her feet. Each breath is a battle against pulmonary arterial hypertension, a disease that has turned her lungs into failing machinery. Without this concentrator, Naomi has 8 minutes before organ failure begins. "Ma'am, I have medical clearance." Naomi's whisper steals precious oxygen from her struggling respiratory system. "I don't care about your so-called doctor's note." Veronica's lip curls with disgust that needs no slurs to communicate hatred. People like you always have excuses for special treatment you haven't earned. The phrase, "people like you," hangs in recycled cabin air, like poison gas. Every passenger within earshot understands exactly what Veronica means. Marcus Carter sits in 12B, his muscular frame folded into the cramped economy seat. To casual observers, he appears ordinary. Worn Carhartt jacket, steel-toed boots suggesting manual labor. His weathered hands rest calmly on his knees, but something dangerous flickers behind his dark eyes. Something that Veronica Pierce will discover far too late. Have you ever watched evil disguised as authority try to murder someone for the color of their skin? March 22nd, 2024. Morning sunlight streams through Flight 892's oval windows as the Boeing 737 sits at Philadelphia International's gate, B-17. The aircraft will carry 156 passengers to Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson. Most are business travelers or family visitors. None realize they're about to witness attempted murder at 35,000 feet. The Carters saved 14 months for this trip. Naomi's mother, Eleanor Washington, passed suddenly from a stroke at 67. The woman who raised Naomi alone after her father abandoned them deserved a proper goodbye, but poverty makes even grief expensive. The cheapest tickets were SkyWing Airlines, $347 each, scraped together from Marcus's overtime at Morrison Steel Works and Naomi's disability payments. Their South Philadelphia apartment cost $1,100 monthly, a bargain only because plumbing barely functioned and winter heating was inconsistent. Naomi's pulmonary arterial hypertension diagnosis came 3 years ago, transforming their lives into medical appointments, insurance battles, and financial devastation. The portable oxygen concentrator cost $2,800, paid over 18 months. Her medications ran $400 monthly, even with insurance. Marcus worked 60-hour weeks just to keep them housed and medicated. They survived. They endured. They loved each other through the grinding machinery of American poverty that destroys bodies and crushes spirits. This morning, Marcus helped Naomi dress in her best outfit, a modest black dress from Salvation Army for $12. She wanted to look presentable for her mother's funeral, even though dressing left her exhausted and gasping. He carefully packed her medical arsenal, backup oxygen tanks, concentrator, medications, and extensive documentation required for air travel with medical devices. TSA agents were surprisingly professional, verifying Naomi's clearance and waving equipment through security. For one brief moment, Marcus allowed himself hope that this trip might proceed without the usual degradations, poverty, and race inflicted. That hope died when Veronica Pierce's eyes landed on his wife. Veronica Pierce, 44, weaponizes her small institutional power into tools of cruelty. Blonde hair pulled in a severe bun tightens already pinched features. 22 years with SkyWing granted seniority, but never the promotions she believes she deserves. Her personnel file tells a darker story. 11 written complaints about discriminatory behavior toward passengers of color over 8 years. Each incident resulted in mandatory diversity training she attended with visible contempt, checking boxes without changing beliefs. SkyWing kept promoting her anyway. Senior flight attendants were expensive to train and difficult to replace. Her complaints involved passengers who couldn't afford lawyers or lacked education to navigate corporate systems. The airline determined settling occasional discrimination claims was cheaper than addressing systemic problems. Veronica learned the system's tolerance for subtle racism, refining techniques to operate below the threshold of actionable discrimination. No explicit slurs, no written evidence, just 1,000 small cruelties disguised as policy enforcement. But today, hatred will exceed plausible deniability boundaries. Today, Veronica Pierce will attempt murder, and American aviation will burn in response. I need original documentation for that device, Veronica demands, voice loud enough to attract attention. Not photocopies, original paperwork with raised seals and notarized signatures. Marcus retrieves a plastic folder from the duffel bag, movements controlled but jaw tightening with recognition of bureaucratic harassment. Here's the original letter from Dr. Patricia Okonkwo at University of Pennsylvania Medical Center, Marcus says calmly. SkyWing's email confirmation approving medical equipment, TSA pre-clearance. An FAA regulation 14 CFR 382.133, protecting passengers with disabilities. Veronica snatches papers with theatrical skepticism. Her eyes scan legitimate letterhead, detailed diagnosis, comprehensive authorization, all completely legal, all properly documented, all protecting Naomi's right to fly with life-saving equipment. Veronica's face flushes red at finding no loopholes to exploit. Prepared passengers of color threaten her superiority. They refuse the incompetent victim role her worldview requires. These look suspicious, Veronica announces loudly. I've seen fraudulent paperwork. People will do anything for special treatment they don't deserve. Angela Morrison, a 29-year-old black social worker in 11D, looks up from her Kindle with shock. Her hand moves to her iPhone, sliding it from her purse with practiced discretion. If this escalates, Angela will document everything Thomas Kowalski, 58, a white accountant in 13A, shifts uncomfortably. His phone sits ready on his tray table. The letterhead is legitimate, Marcus says respectfully. You can call the hospital to verify. Don't tell me my job, Veronica snaps, authority mask slipping. I determine what's acceptable on my aircraft. This equipment poses a safety risk. The statement is completely false. Portable oxygen concentrators are explicitly FAA approved. Veronica knows this. She's gambling the Carters don't understand their legal rights. She's about to discover how catastrophically wrong that is. Federal law specifically protects my wife's medical equipment, Marcus responds. voice taking a subtle edge. The Air Carrier Access Act requires airlines to accommodate passengers with disabilities. What you're suggesting violates federal regulations. Veronica's face contorts with rage at being contradicted by someone she considers beneath her. Are you threatening me? Veronica's voice rises to near shriek. Threatening a flight attendant is federal crime. I can have you removed and arrested. The threat is real. Post 9/11 security gave flight attendants enormous removal power based solely on subjective judgment. Studies document this authority disproportionately impacts passengers of color. Veronica has used this weapon before, threatening removal to intimidate passengers into submission. Most people, especially poor people of color, who cannot afford lawyers, back down when faced with arrest and lifetime airline bans. But Marcus Carter is not most people. I'm not threatening anyone, Marcus says with careful precision. I'm stating federal law. If you have concerns, contact your supervisor or verify documentation with medical professionals. But I'm asking respectfully to allow my wife to keep her life-saving equipment functioning. The careful legal language enrages Veronica further. She expects ignorance and fear, not articulate knowledge of passenger rights. Naomi's breathing becomes more labored as stress compounds her condition. Her oxygen saturation drops from 94% to 89%. Dangerous decline, signaling inadequate oxygen despite the concentrator. Baby, it's okay, Marcus whispers, hand finding hers. Focus on breathing. Don't let this stress you. But Naomi hears escalation. She feels her husband tensing. She knows from bitter experience that situations like this rarely end well for people who look like them. Please, Naomi whispers, barely audible. Just let me breathe. I'm not hurting anyone. Veronica leans down, bringing her face close with deliberate intimidation. Her breath smells of coffee and cheap mints. Her voice drops to vicious whisper, meant only for the Carters. People like you don't belong in the sky, Veronica hisses. You should have stayed on the ground where your kind belongs. This is a privilege you haven't earned. I'm going to make sure you remember your place. Naked racism finally stripped of bureaucratic pretense. Hatred simmering beneath professional courtesy boils into explicit dehumanization. Angela Morrison's iPhone is recording now, positioned to capture everything without being obvious. Her social work training taught her to document abuse. Thomas Kowalski pulls out his phone, hands shaking with discomfort at witnessing such blatant discrimination. Captain Richard Henderson sits in the cockpit, completely unaware his senior flight attendant is about to commit a federal crime that will destroy his airline. SkyWing Flight 892 sits at the gate, scheduled for departure in 12 minutes. None of the 156 passengers realize they're about to witness attempted murder. I'm asking one final time to step away from my wife's medical equipment, Marcus says, voice carrying new authority that makes passengers turn. You're violating federal law and endangering her life. I'm the authority here, Veronica shouts, abandoning professionalism. Not you! Not your whining welfare queen wife. Me! The slur welfare queen detonates through the cabin. The racist dog whistle, popularized to demonize black mothers, needs no explanation. Angela Morrison's recording captures Veronica's face contorted with hatred, finger pointing at Naomi like something contaminated. Without warning, Veronica's hand shoots forward and grabs the delicate tubing connecting Naomi's concentrator to her nostrils. Her executive red nails wrap around medical equipment like claws. No! Marcus shouts, body moving to intercept. But Veronica is faster, driven by rage that grants cruel efficiency. With savage yank that sends shockwaves through surrounding rows, she rips the oxygen tubes from Naomi's nose. Plastic tubing snaps against Naomi's face with vicious force, leaving angry red welts across dark skin. The sound, sharp crack followed by Naomi's scream, makes passengers gasp in horror. Naomi's hands fly to her face as terror floods her body. Her lungs, already damaged and barely functional, immediately begin failing without supplemental oxygen. Her chest heaves with desperate attempts to pull air. Her disease-ravaged system cannot process. "What are you doing?" Marcus roars, controlled facade shattering as he watches his wife suffocate. "Sit down, or I'm calling security," Veronica screams, positioning herself between Marcus and the concentrator like a human barricade. "You're being aggressive. This is federal offense." Naomi's lips begin turning blue within 30 seconds. Telltale cyanosis as blood oxygen plummets. Her saturation display shows 82%, then 78%, dropping into catastrophically dangerous levels. Her vision tunnels, darkness creeping from edges as her brain receives insufficient oxygen. Her fingers claw weakly at her throat in universal choking gesture. Though her airway isn't obstructed, her lungs simply cannot extract enough oxygen from normal air. "She's dying!" Dr. Rahman Patel shouts from 14B. Medical training recognizing respiratory failure immediately. The 45-year-old Johns Hopkins pulmonologist unbuckles and moves toward emergency. "That woman needs oxygen now, or she'll suffer brain damage." Veronica spins to face Dr. Patel, face twisted with authority and madness. "Return to your seat. I'm handling this." "You're committing murder," Dr. Patel shouts, professional composure cracking. "I'm a physician ordering you to return that equipment immediately." "I don't take orders from passengers." Veronica's hand slams down on the oxygen concentrator with devastating force. The machine rocks violently. Warning lights flash. The mechanical hum that kept Naomi alive stutters. Naomi's body convulses as oxygen starvation triggers involuntary responses. Her eyes roll back. Her skin takes grayish pallor that makes her look already dead. "You're killing her!" Marcus screams, federal training abandoning him as paternal terror takes over. Angela Morrison's phone captures everything. The assault, the suffocation, the attempted murder in real time. Thomas Kowalski is recording too, hands shaking violently as he witnesses evil in business casual. Passengers in surrounding rows begin shouting, "Someone stop her! That woman is dying. Call 911. Jesus Christ, she's turning blue." Act 2. The reckoning flight attendant Michael Chen rushes from the rear galley, face pale with horror. The 28-year-old has worked for SkyWing only 8 months, but training never prepared him for watching a colleague commit assault. "Veronica, what are you doing?" Michael shouts, voice cracking. "Stay out of this, Chen!" Veronica snarls without turning, body still blocking access to Naomi's oxygen. This passenger is non-compliant, and her husband is threatening crew. "That's a lie!" Angela Morrison shouts, holding up her recording phone. "I have video of everything. You attacked that woman." Veronica's head snaps toward Angela, eyes widening as she realizes she's being recorded. For the first time, genuine fear flickers. Not fear for Naomi's life, but fear of consequences. "Delete that immediately," Veronica demands, voice reaching hysterical pitch. "Unauthorized recording of crew is illegal. You're interfering with flight operations.